And then I really went down the rabbit hole of working on the invisible, which is what I've, now would say is one of the most powerful modalities that we have for healing and repair, which is the breath. So I became a breathwork facilitator in 2020, right around the time of the pandemic when nobody was talking about breath and breathing. And since then, I've, really tried to spread that message to other practitioners. And what we do now is what I refer to as precision wellness, where we use ancient wisdom, modern technology and testing, and wearables and coaching and accountability to really help create accelerated outcomes and transformations for our clients. So really, like, the story evolves and continues, and I'm sure if we interviewed each other again in 5 years, there'll be another tool that I have under my belt to be able to help and assist people. But my ultimate mission now is how do we create simplicity in the healing process so that it becomes affordable and accessible to anyone who seeks it? And then how do we hold people to a higher standard so that they improve their health, their family's health, their community's health, and really create an elevation in humanity? That's my ultimate objective. And if we can do that for, you know, 1% of people, I'll be happy. But if we can do it for as many people that want this and are willing to do the work, which is oftentimes embarrassingly simple and easy, then I'm all here for it.
I love that. And I was sharing this before the show, Sachin, as you know, and I just shared with James, I had messaged you and said, hey, if we could get one message out during the show, what would we want it to be? And I love what you said, helping people believe in themselves again without outsourcing their health and well-being to the latest fad. I really love that. And I love the idea of combining ancient wisdom with, modern scientific understanding and wearables and data and just kind of blending all of that together. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I have questions for you, my friend. You and I have had a very interesting parallel careers, and I find it super curious. Almost the same timeline, almost to the same years. Like it's just very interesting to me. I like you as an early adopter of functional medicine, and I was telling you in the green room that I make friends with functional medicine people, and I'm teasing in the IFM support groups and practitioner groups. I'm always poking at them a little bit because I feel like the profession itself, if there is such a thing, but just the unified, it seems to be very medicalized lately. A very much a push toward a leaning toward people with standard medical degrees, MDs, especially some nurse practitioners, sprinkled in there, but really a leaning away from what I think are the foundations of the professions that built the idea of functional medicine. That if you give the body the right tools and resources that it needs, the right, water and electrolytes and food that's real food, not Franken foods, and movement and nervous system regulation. We'll get into breath work here in a little bit, and sleep patterns and a community. When we give people those things, they will get better. And like you said, it's simple and it can be easy. But in the forums, that's not the way it's practiced. It's very much, looking at off-label uses of drugs. I don't know if you're in the same forums that I am. These are the IFM forums, Institute of Functional Medicine, IFM forums, off-label uses for drugs. I have a patient with X fill in the blank disease. What do I do to treat that disease? And I'm like, this is not what functional medicine is. And I feel like I'm in there just stirring the pot and stirring the pot and stirring the pot. And it's gotten, I'm surprised I haven't been kicked out of the forums yet. But that all said, I am an IFMCP. I am one of their certified providers. It's gone through all the extra training. And I've been around for, 26 years doing this. And the messages that I'm getting basically is, let's not have this discussion in the forums. Why don't we get offline and have this discussion? But I think it needs to be had in front of each other and with each other. So I'm interested when you said, this is my first question. I'm interested when you said, we're kind of leaning away toward functional medicine and leaning more towards the world precision wellness. That hit home with me. I understood that deeply to my core, but I'm not sure I understood it for the same reasons that you were saying it. I'd love to turn whatever this little venting diatribe is. I'd love to turn this over to you and hear your thoughts on the state of functional medicine and why did you switch over to using language like precision wellness? Like I said, inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, great question. I think, kudos to functional medicine. the Institute of functional medicine practitioners that are out there. I've had a chance to actually be on a boat with Jeff Bland for 3 days and be in very, tight quarters with him and really understand his philosophy to a depth that maybe most people haven't been exposed to. And I think he may even potentially agree with exactly what you're saying. The vision that he has for functional medicine or had is that it's a root cause approach, right? It's evidence based. It's do no harm. It's find the simplest path, the most, Occam razor, which is like the simplest solution is probably the most likely solution. So I think that still lives in the ethos of functional medicine. However, when you're introducing people who are perhaps stuck in a different paradigm into a new paradigm, they might bring some of those habits with them, right? Which is, okay, we're getting at the root cause, but is the root cause addressed through a pill or a potion or a drug or an injection, or is it addressed through a lifestyle change? And I feel like for me, the evolution that I had, this might be a little bit off topic, but I went through ayahuasca recently. Earlier this year, I went through ayahuasca. And the awakening that I had is if our souls are timeless, right? And this is hopefully not too esoteric for people, but our souls are timeless, right? They don't understand there's no beginning, there's no end. And so if we think about that timeline for our soul, I think about, can I be useful in this moment, right? In any moment that I'm in, can I provide my client with a tool that helps them move their health in the right direction? Can I do it now, sitting here in the sauna, sitting here on the bus, riding in the back seat of a car? And could I have done that 1,000 years ago? And can I do that 1,000 years from now? Right? Because many practitioners, and this is really a shot across the bow for everyone, is, just here's something to think about is what you're saying, would it have been relevant 1,000 years ago? Which means that if it wasn't, would you have been relevant 1,000 years ago? And if what you're saying is relevant today, will it be relevant 1,000 years from now? And so that's the filter
Mm.
that I try to use for the guidance and the advice that I give to my clients, because I don't want to recommend something that I find out 5 years from now isn't what they should have been doing. I've done that enough in my career, right? I'm sure, many people listening to this might even be guilty of that. You tell people to do one thing and then you find out with new information and new evidence that maybe I shouldn't have told them to do that. Maybe that wasn't the right thing to tell them, or maybe there was a nuance there that they didn't understand. So now what I try to do is, if I'm going to create habit change, if I'm going to create paradigm change, then I want that information and that wisdom to be timeless, which means that it's something that they'll benefit from now. It's something they'll benefit from the future, something that they can teach and train their children. So it creates a multi-generational
Mm.
ripple in the way people enjoy their lived experience while they're alive across any timeline, right? So it's a very
Right.
different philosophy for me. And I'm not, I'm I'd like to shove it down everyone's throat, but I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to be me and live my life to the best of my ability in the hopes that other people want to live a similar quality of life, right? In purpose, on purpose, and spreading goodness as far and wide as we can, and providing people with the ability to understand how amazing their body is, and their body is their greatest ally. One thing that has happened is when we outsource healing to a pill, potion, or whatever tool or resource, we slowly degrade our own power, right? Because the answer we feel like is outside of us instead of the answer being inside of us, which is the best place to hide it, right? If I was an evil entity and I wanted to do the most evil thing I could possibly do to you, it would be to take your power away and pretend that the solution to your problems exist outside of you. So you're
Mm.
constantly seeking it as opposed to being it and living it and experiencing it.
I think that's brilliant. I've never really thought about it that way, and I love this idea of the ancient wisdom is the future wisdom, right? I mean, like you said, is what we're saying, recommending, today, would it have been relevant 1,000 years ago? Will it be relevant 1,000 years from now? I would say in modern quote healthcare, which by the way is devoid of both health and care in most instances, um, I think that, we have to ask questions, is what I'm saying today going to be relevant in 6 months? I mean, the science, quote unquote, changes so much, and it seems to be driven by dollar signs more than, anything else. That all said, I I really I mean, I'm going to ask my question here in a second because it's interesting. You've kind of already answered it, but when we outsource, I think this is what you said. When we outsource our health to a pill, potion, procedure, or provider, we aren't honoring the power within us. And I think that's it's just such a beautiful philosophy. And it brings me to my question. You've said over and over that the doctor of the future is the patient. And of course, doctor, from its Latin roots, docere, one who teaches, right? And I love this idea of what can we teach? What legacy can we leave, not only for our generation, but for the multiple generations behind us? I'd love to hear you speak on the doctor of the future is the patient. Wax poetic on that. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, sure. If we actually look at the healthcare crisis that we find ourselves in, and you start asking yourself, what is the solution? You know, I don't think the solution is more Sachins. I don't think the solution is more Jasons or more people like James. I mean, I think what we're doing is noble, but there's not enough of us to go around to create the actual world that we want to live in, right? I ask when I speak publicly, I'll ask people, how many of you want your children to see the best functional medicine oncologist, right? Or the best holistic oncologist? And, some people will kind of raise their hands, not understanding the question. And the answer is nobody, right? Nobody wants their children or themselves or a loved one to go down that path, even if the solution is holistic and even if the solution is side effect free, because we've walked the path of illness, right? We get the diagnosis later in the process, but we walk that path,
Mhm.
which means we model that path, which means that our children, whether we like it or not, we always leave a legacy behind. You leave a legacy behind, even if you leave the kitchen sink dirty, or if you go to the gym and you don't wipe off the countertop, or you don't leave your weights in the right place. One of my pet peeves, right? That we leave a legacy everywhere we go, in every moment that we live. So when you think about the life that you live, right, you can leave a really important legacy. You're gonna leave one anyways, but you can leave one that matters. And so what I realized is that more doctors aren't the answer, more nurses aren't the answer, more pills and potions aren't the answer. The real answer is more healthy people. And I borrow that from James Chestnut, who some of you might know. And that really stuck with me, is that we just need more healthy people. And then I ask myself, like, what does that look like? Right now, in order for people to get healthy, they have to get sick first, and the criteria of their
Mm.
sickness is determined by somebody else, right? Like, who made up that diabetes is this and cancer is this and such and such disease is this, right? We've called these conditions, but they're not conditions, they're expressions, right? You're either expressing health or you're expressing illness and disease. It's not a condition that you're in, it's an expression. And so the world I want to live in is where people know how to take care of themselves from the youngest age possible, because it's being modeled to them by their parents. It's being modeled to them through their environment. It's being modeled to them in their surroundings, whether it's school or at home, wherever it is, you know. And in order to model health, you have to then you enjoy the benefits of being healthy yourself. So it's the greatest win-win scenario. If parents are healthy, they're modeling health to their children. Their children are bringing that health and joy, and you know uh, that bundle of light that all children are to the world. I mean, that's what the world needs. So I want people to be healthy from the very beginning. And the trajectory of somebody who knows how to be healthy from the very beginning versus somebody who learns how to be healthy when they're 40 is vastly different, right? Why wait until you're sick to learn how to be healthy? What if you could be healthy? You are healthy. I mean, everyone in this moment, no matter what state of expression you're in, your ultimate goal for your body is to get back into the expression of balance and homeostasis, which is the most efficient way that your body operates, right? Anything that's a delta away from homeostasis is just wasted energy. And this is why people's energy is so low these days, not because they don't have any. People have plenty of fat and they have plenty of calories that they're consuming. What they have is energy that's being wasted trying to bring their body, who's fighting for homeostasis, and they're creating an environment and a situation that's pushing them out of homeostasis. So by being the doctor of the future, you're tapping into this innate wisdom and potential that we all have and living life with a sense of awareness so that every moment is a healing opportunity, right? I mean, most people go through life with no awareness, no awareness of their lighting, no awareness of their breathing, no awareness of their eating, no awareness of their thoughts, no awareness of the sound that's coming in, right? Our nervous systems are constantly picking up uh, through our environments to decide how to best express our genome. And so when you're the doctor of the future, you know how to tap into these subtle nuances and express health more efficiently and more effectively. And the things that, you know, not to ramble on too much here, but our body insists that we do these things. It doesn't resist. And we can talk about some of those native inputs that are essential for health, but your body never resists being healthy. It resists being sick and unwell, right? That's why it takes 50 years to develop diabetes, or 50 years to clog
Mhm.
your arteries, or 70 years to rot your brain, because your body's resisting that the entire time. It's fighting to go back to normal. It's fighting to go back to homeostasis and health. And this is why when we partner with our body, the greatest doctor resides inside of us. When we partner with our body as an ally, what immediately happens is it's like rolling a boulder down a hill instead of rolling a boulder up a hill. And so these are the principles that we teach people. And that's where you get rapid transformation in people's health. And then we give them short feedback loops, like an aura ring, so that every day they know that things are moving and shifting in the right direction. We're not just relying on, retesting, or we're not just relying on their symptoms. We're seeing things change in their body, the things that they can't put their fingers on necessarily, or I guess in this case, they can with their aura, but now they have a feedback loop that says, hey, my body's moving in the right direction, just like their GPS, right? And so when we think about like a precision wellness practitioner, we use wearables because it doesn't take us a retest to know if the client's getting better, and it doesn't take the client a retest to know if they're getting better. They're living it and experiencing it and quantifying it for themselves, so they're far more compliant along the way. And now that we live in this amazing time right now, we can decentralize health, right? It doesn't have to be the way it was leading up to now, right? We can decentralize and democratize health uh, better now than ever before in human history. So I'm excited to be alive right now, because even 20 years ago, this was what we're doing now wasn't a possibility.
You know, listening to you guys go over what the foundation of what you both do, I'm sure a lot of people are just curious. They're like, "Well, what is functional medicine?" And how does this make sense to me? And what's it founded in? Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this episode. And it's gonna open up some more portals for people's curiosity more than anything. And you're talking about the putting weights away and doing the right thing is your legacy. Well, being together, the three of us on a podcast interview is really a legacy for me, and bringing us all together to talk about topics that really matter. And um, I'm just curious. One of the things that you guys were discussing offline, and you said this was like fair game, was moving away from doctor title to just being Sachin or Mr. Patel even. Um, what was your decision based on that too? Because I think that line of transition makes sense right now in today's conversation, because you're talking about what it was, what you're recommending, where you might have not had enough information, and giving the the solution to somebody, and now you're more precise using the word that you're focused on at this iteration of your career. um, what did you decide was the right move for you to stop putting doctor as a part of your title?
Yeah, I'm not big on labels. And the reason for that is because they can be very limiting and they can be very confining and constricting. And what I found is that by just being me, it allows me to become what I'm here to become. And again, that might be, a little esoteric for some people, but when you grow up, you kind of decide what you want to be, and then you become that, and then you're like, okay, there's got to be more to life than this. And then you become something else, or you evolve and you pick up new skills. And the titles that you had before don't seem to apply anymore, right? Or they can be tethering or limiting your reach or your impact that you have. And I know, of course, the word doctor carries a lot of weight, but I want my message to carry more weight than my title.
Mm.
I want my impact to carry more weight than my title. And I also want people to know that they can be their own best doctor, right? I think that when we, and again, I'm not projecting this onto any, this is my own journey, right? Everyone's on their own journey. So call yourself whatever you want, but I just want to be Sachin, right? I want to be me, and I want to become me, and I want to be able to adopt and um, add tools and add resources and offerings that go beyond that, right? So, I'm into breath, I'm into plant medicine, I'm into nature therapy, I'm into portaging and retreats and taking people off grid into the back country. And so the word doctor doesn't seem fitting anymore, right? If I was a doctor, you would think of me being in an office, doing clinical work. That's what I see when I hear the word doctor. And again, nothing wrong with that, but that's not me anymore. So I wanted a title that liberated me to become me.
I know, Jim, I know you want to say something, but I just got to say, I got to interject a little bit because I relate to this a whole lot because I'm also not in the clinic and I'm also not doing research. And I've been thinking about the same stuff. But I do want to say that when my mother would introduce me at various functions, she would always say, "This is my son, Dr. Bradley." And she'd always just really emphasize that because she was just so proud of it. And of course, I'm not a conventional doctor by any means. I never have been. And so, but instantly when people hear that word, they go right to like, oh, you must be a surgeon or you must be a specialist and all this stuff. And I already know that. So then I would automatically say, yeah, my mother had high hopes for all of us. She named me doctor. She named my brother governor and my sister senator. And she hated that joke because it took the power away from her, the Dr. Bradley, like this overemphasis. And anyway, I just wanted to share that. It had no question behind it, just my own journey. James, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think that is a funny joke. Dr. Jason. But
you got to emphasize it. You got to really drag it out. Doctor.
Well, they say laughter is the best medicine, right? So we might as well get a dose of that while we're on today's show.
Well, laughter is breath work, so it does qualify as the best medicine.
Yeah. I just have to ask you, and this isn't like a pull and punches question, but you're in Canada, and did that have anything to do with like the sanctions that they have on the medical world up there that you just was like, hey, I'm tired of playing this game because the old saying is you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And is it something to that degree that you're just tired of the situation that's going on up there with the natural health providers? And you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to help people out the way that I feel like I should help people. And of course, I have a degree, but I go further than that. And you guys can all play that game. I'm just not going to come to the party anymore.
No, I'm also trained as an FDN, a functional diagnostic nutritionist, which grants me the scope to work with people across borders and in different countries. And so being an online practitioner, there's, certain things that restrict and limit, based on your licensure, right? So there are challenges, just kind of speaking frankly, there are challenges around that as well. And some practitioners bump up against that. They want to help somebody in a different state and they can't because their scope doesn't permit them to do that. So there are some liberties that come in to play when you do have other designations that allow you to work with people across borders and in different capacities. So that's also helpful for me to have that designation to be able to do that. And not everyone has that luxury. So it does take a little bit of planning and foresight to do that. And in 2020, I became an FDN, which enabled me to continue to help people in the capacity that I choose to.
No, it's a fair response. I'm curious because it's not there seems to be more regulation up above the border about what, you know, natural health providers are capable of doing within their scope, as you said.
Well, this, the
And
same thing applies to medical doctors here,
Hmm.
right?
mhm.
So, medical doctors are very handcuffed in the way they practice because they're typically practicing in a socialized setting, medical setting, a socialized healthcare system, and they're given about 8 to 9 minutes to see their client. And every single one that has tried to incorporate, let's say, a more holistic or root cause personalized approach to wellness or healthcare, even if it is, treating a medical condition, they run up against the clock and they just don't have the capacity to do it. So it's not just holistic practitioners that are restricted, it's the medical doctors that are actually even more restricted. And it's not uncommon for, practitioners in the US to even give up their licensure and become coaches, because coaching actually aligns more with their values than the way they're limited by their scope of their medical degree or chiropractic or naturopathic degree in some cases. So it really depends, on what type of practitioner you are, who you serve, the geographic regions that you serve. There's a variety of factors that can come into play for something like this in,
Well,
in order for people to make the best decision for themselves.
it sounds like earlier on you said, "Hey, if we have this conversations in 5 years from now, it'll be different." And it seems like that system 5 years from now might not improve. Just my take on it, and it seems like the timing that they provide and the outcomes that people get might not be in alignment. And that's just it. Is we've forced our greatest minds of the world into systems that aren't working for them as the practitioner, and for the outcomes which people are hoping to get. So it just seems like we need to retool a little bit, so in 5 years we can have a better conversation about people being really proud of their doctor in front of their names, and the way that they can go out there and practice in this free world. And I think that it's a very poignant conversation to have today, because you are doing great things. And the breathwork aspect is something I want to bridge into here next. But I want Dr. Jason to jump on. It looks like he's ready to join the conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. It's interesting because I, we know a lot of different types of practitioners, all of us do. And I speak with my I'm not picking on them. I'm just it's an example. Our MD counterparts, right? And when you speak with them, they are Sachin, I think you said they have handcuffs or their hands are tied a lot of times just because of their licensure. There's something that the general public has heard of, but I'm not sure they fully understand. It's called standards of care, SOCs. And standards of care dictate that you have to follow an exact algorithm of the way that you think and interact with your patient. And so basically, you're doing a quick little history with them, what's going on. It's called a history of present illness, HPI, what's going on. And that's to put them in a box, i.e. a diagnosis, and a label. And once they're labeled, the way modern technology works, it drops down a drop-down menu of a drug that is appropriate, or a procedure, or a referral to a specialist to get a drug or a procedure. And that's it. That's the depth of it. There's not really any drop down or SOC that's built around, and you need to sit with them and teach them how to eat. And they need to learn how to do electrolytes and move and regulate their nervous system and do breath work and sleep patterning and, be around a healthy community. And I mean, there's because I think people have this question, and I'm sure that you heard it and you still hear it from your clients, how come my other doctor or how come my other provider, they didn't tell me any of this? And I mean, the straightforward question is, I used to say, well, they didn't know. I mean, and that was my gut reaction. Like, well, they just weren't trained in it. And you know what? The unfortunate thing is there is a lack of training as well, because, um, healthcare training, medical training, healthcare training, which again is devoid of both health and care, at least in the United States and probably in Canada too. I'm not there. It's been co-opted by the pharmaceutical industries. And so what those students are taught is how to prescribe drugs. And that's it. And I think it's a good description of, I'm a medical doctor. I'm a doctor that knows medicine. And that's what I'm really good at. And that's really the only thing I'm good at. But when you have an outside the box thinker that says, wait a minute, I what if, I haven't gotten in trouble. I've been challenged on this next statement. Um, what if type 2 diabetes can be cured by what's at the end of the fork? Like, what if it's that simple? And what if it's just movement and eat differently? What if we don't need all those type 2 diabetes medications? I mean, they're big sellers, but if you start to think that way as a medical doctor, a medical provider, at least in the United States, you're no longer even practicing the standards of care. You've actually gone outside your lane, and you can lose your license for it. You can lose everything that you've built your entire life around. And so I talk now, and again, I used to say the training isn't there, but even if the training is there, even if they've gone out of their way to learn these things, their hands are still tied. They still can't talk about it. They're the clinic SOC standards of care, the hospital standards of care, the insurance company standards of care, if they're working for Kaiser or Blue Cross or whatever it happens to be, they can't even talk about it, even if they want to, because they'll get in trouble. The medical boards don't want it. They don't even want to deal with it. You're renegade if you're doing those things. So it's interesting. I think oh shoot, I think this is right. I might have it wrong, but I think it's Marcia Angel, the one of the ex-editors from the New England Journal of Medicine said,
Mhm.
if you're walking into this is not verbatim, this is paraphrasing. But if you're walking into a regular doctor's office with a white coat, you're already being ambushed by the pharmaceutical industry. Like, I mean, and she said it very straightforwardly. And I'm not sure that the average Joe and Jane walking around understand that that's the depth of what they're going to get. They're not going to get the outside the box. And if they do get one, I mean, I've known people that have practiced within the regular, traditional, conventional medical systems. They don't last very long. They're either fired or they're kind of quietly moved somewhere else or put somewhere else behind the scenes, or like I said, they lose their license or just step down. So I'm fascinated by this whole FDN thing. Functional diagnostic nutrition, is that what it was?
Mhm. Yes.
I've heard about it. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm fascinated by it. Before I get to
Can I
my
say something?
oh, please.
All right. I don't want you to lose that question, but I just want to say this. So I know healthcare, right? We wonder if how much health there is in that system and how much care is in that system. And what I can share from my lived experience is that I've met some extremely caring people in that system. My wife's life was saved by by nurses and medical doctors. My son's life was saved at the same time. And I've met some of the most caring people when my grandmother passed away, my grandfather passed away. So people care, but you can care and be wrong, right? You can care. I mean, there's times where I'm sure we've cared for our spouses or loved ones, only later to find out that we were wrong. And that doesn't make us bad people. It just means that maybe we had the wrong information or the wrong paradigm, or I feel people are trapped in the system. So I want to just kind of acknowledge everyone for putting their best foot forward every day with the information and the paradigm that they're living in. Because at the end of the day, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're doing their best. And that allows us to have compassion and empathy for the people that are doing this work, and not to take away from what you're saying, because it can feel like that, right? On the receiving end, it can feel like, okay, where's the health? Because they're selling junk food in the hospital. And where's the care? Because I'm trying to get a hold of someone and they don't care about the same things that I do.
Mm,
So there could be a disconnection there. The solution that I propose is that these systems can coexist. And I really think it's really dependent on how we approach the problem that we're facing, the paradigm through which we approach it, and what our expectations are. So, for example, I've had to go to a mechanic before for my car to get an oil change, or I've had to take my car to the body shop if it gets into a problem there. And I go in with the expectation that I'm going to hand this piece of machinery over to you, and I'm going to come back in a couple of days, and it's going to be close to as new as you can get it, and you're going to do your best work. And here's my expectations of that. I'm not expecting the mechanic to teach me how to drive. I'm not expecting the auto body shop to teach me the rules of the road and how to stay out of an accident, because they're invested in me getting into another accident, right? Not necessarily, but that goes against, it's a conflict of interest, right? But if I go to driving school isn't going to repair my car. A driving school instructor is not going to change my oil. They're going to teach me the rules of engagement. They're going to teach me what the signage means. They're going to help me have a lived experience so that I know how to drive, not by reading a book, but by actually driving a car. They're going to teach me how to parallel park and all the things that prevent the accident, that prevent the car from breaking down on the side of the road. Those are the things that driving school is going to teach me. So I position myself as a driving school instructor. I'm going to teach you how this vehicle works. I'm going to teach you what the buttons do, what buttons to push, when to push them, so that you can have the maximum output that you desire, whatever output you desire from this vehicle that you're in. Now, if you get banged up and you get into a mess and you need surgery, or you have an acute need for drugs or medication, then guess what? We have mechanics and we have body shops, people that can fix you up. And the other analogy I would share is the difference between a handyman and a firefighter, right? So a firefighter is going to come and, if somebody's house is burning down, they're going to do their best job to put the fire out. And whereas a handyman is going to come and make your home more comfortable to live in. And so knowing the difference as a patient or a client is very important, because that helps us manage our expectations. So when somebody comes to me and they say, I went to my doctor and this is what they gave me, I'm like, well, what did you expect? That's what they're trained in, right? That's what their specialty is. And that's the system that they have subscribed to. And you get to choose if you subscribe to that system. And if that's what you need, that's the right place for you to be. But if it isn't, and you're looking for someone to teach you how to be well, that's not what the current medical system is designed to do, right? In fact, if you think about it, there's 3 things we don't learn in school. We don't learn how to grow our own food, so we can people will shovel crap into their faces and into their bodies because they don't know what real food is. We don't teach people about finances, so people will, have a lot of financial stress and constraints because they don't understand how that system works. And we don't teach people how to be healthy. Think about all the stuff that we learned in school, in elementary school, high school, even university, that is completely useless to us today. But what if we learned those 3 things? What real food is, how to manage our finances, and how to create true health. I mean, it would cause our economy to collapse, right? It's if everyone woke up healthy tomorrow, our entire system would crumble to the ground. So
I got to interject.
Our economy depends on it.
Sachin, I got to interject because for my master's thesis for journalism, I actually proposed. The university would not let me write this, but I proposed that as my working topic. What would happen to our economy if if the entire United States woke up completely healthy? And my premise was conservatively 25% and even upwards of like 35% of our entire U.S. gross domestic product is built around sales of people being sick. I mean, it's of money exchanging hands because people aren't well. And there's a lot of politics that happened. Again, we're at the university. I was at the University of Iowa, largest teaching hospital in the United States, very big pharma funded. The entire institution would not let me do that thesis. I ended up doing mine on. It's called "Soldiers in the Middle" was my working title, and I worked with soldiers that went to the Middle East and experienced PTSD and came back to the Midwest and then experienced more PTSD from the VA system not having the services and the support that they needed. And we can fill in all those blanks. And they were happy enough with me doing that. But I want to just come back. And I think that when I say not caring, I want to just say to you, bringing it back to what we were talking about, I agree with you. There's some very caring people that are in there that really, I think with all their heart and soul, believe that what they're doing is the best thing that they can do to help that person that's in front of them. I think that where I come from, and God bless all of them, and they've saved my life and my kids' lives and all that. I think we've all experienced stuff like that, and I hope to never have to experience it again. Knock on wood and prayers to God. I think the problems that I face about there not being health in it or care in it is when we start hearing statistics like modern American medicine practiced the way it's practiced is conservatively the 3rd leading cause of death in this country, with over 250,000 deaths every year, making it only 3rd to cardiovascular disease and cancer. And then if we go to number 1, cardiovascular disease, even according to the American Heart Association, on their own website, American Heart Association, and in their own journal called Circulation, they predict that about 1 million Americans will die this year from some type of cardiovascular disease. And they even say that 80 to 90% of that is preventable. And I'm like, why aren't we preventing this stuff then? What, like, isn't that what we're supposed to do? We're, if we are going to be doctors, I think I said this earlier. If I didn't, it was in my head, but doctor comes from Latin docere, one who teaches. And I mean, why aren't we teaching prevention? Where is the care in that? Where is the care in I don't want to kill people. I don't want to be part of a system that kills. That's the third leading cause of death in this country. I find those just interesting statistics. And when we start questioning that dialogue, when we start questioning the system, the paradigm, it gets a little challenging, because again, people's livelihoods are built around it. They're handcuffed, they're tied. And when I meet resistance to even having the discussion, I mean, without going to blame game, just, it's just a discussion. What can we do better? But then those statistics are chastised, or like, oh, those can't be true. And I'm like, they're in your own journals. Like, and there's the old joke, how do you hide something from a doctor? It's publish it in their own journals. You guys can think about that for a while. It means that doctors don't read their journals. But anyway, my point that I'm making is, when we start headbutting over really, really important topics like this, and we meet that resistance, that's where my whole statement of there's not really caring. Because if we truly cared as providers, no matter what we're labeling ourselves at or not labeling ourselves at, we would want, again, to first do no harm. Like, don't hurt people. Like choose the path of least resistance, that also is the easiest, that's also the most affordable, that's also the most empowering, that also doesn't hurt people, and it's challenging for me. I see James got his finger up and he's ready to talk. So go ahead.
Well, what you're explaining here is exactly where both of you are in your personal journeys. Is you don't run a brick and mortar office. And what that takes in order to break free of the medical matrix is become a leader. And most of the things that you're talking about, good people doing not such good things, it's because they just want a job. And the people that they trust, they think they're doing the right things. That's the rub, is they're not bad people and they have care in their heart. Otherwise, they wouldn't go and get a job in a discipline that they thought they were helping people in. Like I said earlier, we just need to retool what help means. And like Sachin said, we just need to retool what people learn. So if we teach people fundamentals about what it is to be financially strong, what it means to be healthy, resilient, strong, and what it means to be competent with decision making, like, all right, now we can have a full collapse and everybody can find their good hearts again and retool the method that they deliver in, and that's okay. I think we're just living in this illusion at the moment that people say that this is the way it is and that's the way it is and that's the way it's always going to be. But like Sachin said, he speaks from stages all the time and he delivers messages to people, and there's a message within that. And I tell people all the time, like, in 100 years, will they remember you? And if not, you got to go do something about that, because in 100 years, you know who they're going to remember? Me. So you have to become that own leader in your own field, in your own messaging, in your own method. And you got to sometimes break free of the medical matrix, which seems like a good job. That's all.
Yeah, like one concept that I think is important is the paradigm of prevention. So if you were to, let's say you're going out for dinner to a new restaurant, you've never been there before, and you put it into your GPS, you're not going to put all the places you don't want to go, hoping you end up at the restaurant. You're going to put exactly where you want to go.
Precision.
And so I have precision, certainly. And so I have a rub against the word prevention, because something has to exist for you to prevent it. So in a healthy person, the idea of prevention introduces a foreign concept that didn't exist in the person's mind before. So, if I said, hey, Will, I want to put you on an anti-cancer diet or a cancer prevention diet. Well, now he's thinking about cancer all the time. and there's 10,000 diagnosable diseases. How many different diets is he going to be on to prevent all 10,000 of them? So our philosophy is let's focus on a health creation strategy. Let's run a DNA test on you. Let's run a food inflammation panel. Let's identify what the best type of diet is, what the best type of exercise is, what are the best
Mm.
labs that you want to run on yourself in perpetuity to make sure you're monitoring where there might be some challenges. What's your detox capacity? What's your hormonal capacity? Let's get this self-awareness through this personal user manual, and let's live into it, right? Let's take this user manual and write an amazing story with the life
Mm.
that you have, because you have the awareness of how to take better care of yourself. And let's not focus on prevention, let's focus on creation. So there is a bit of a
Mm.
paradigm shift. And one thing I'll also say is, Buckminster Fuller said, instead of trying to fight the old system, let's just create something that's better, that makes the existing system obsolete. And I don't think my intention is to make the existing medical system obsolete, because it serves a time and a place. And I'm sure at some point it's going to help me or someone that I love immensely. And it might even keep them alive a little bit longer. But, after they leave the hospital or after they leave the doctor's office, then now we go back to health creation, right? We go back to what can I do to tap into my body's own innate wisdom, to move things back to homeostasis, to roll the health boulder down the hill instead of up the hill,
Wow.
and to do that without manipulating my body or forcing it to do something that it isn't designed to do, and creating an expression of health instead of an expression of disease. And what's beautiful about that, just like a wilting plant, right? A wilting plant is expressing its inputs. It's simply expressing what the best that it can with the information, the nutrients, the sunlight, the environment that it has. And so if we change that for people, then we get a different expression. And it doesn't take long for that to change for people. So now the question is, what's the fastest, easiest, most effective, and reproducible way to get there? And, that maybe leads us out into our next conversation. And to go back to something that Jason said earlier, uh, I think, these practitioners who are in that, mechanic or body shop type of paradigm, which is again necessary, they just need to get better at referring out, right? If Willie Joe Blow kept getting into car accidents, at some point the mechanic might be like, or the auto body shop might be like, dude, maybe you need to learn how to drive instead
Yes.
of bringing your car in here every week all dinged up. And they refer out,
Yes.
right? So
Rachel
these,
used to call when she was working in the hospital as a nurse clinician. She would call those people frequent flyers.
And
yeah.
And I mean,
and that's their bodies.
yeah.
It's not their driving mechanism, it's their body mechanism. And damn it, put your weights away after you use them.
Right. It's very true. And actually, thank you guys. It leads me right to my next question. And thank you, Sachin, for I love this whole driving school instructor, teacher versus mechanic,
Body shop.
body shop. I like it. It makes it so clear to me. I really appreciate that.
Damn it, put your weights away.
It's right. Learn how to drive better. Listen, the living proof method, from what I understand, is built on 6 pillars. Is that correct?
So we have several, but that's
Several.
definitely more than 6.
Okay.
So
here,
certainly those are foundational.
I won't number them then. It's built on some pillars. Can you walk us through the main pillars and how they create this comprehensive approach to healing? And I want to say this again, health creation over prevention.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, our Living Light program is essentially designed to help people live in alignment. And through alignment and a self-awareness and understanding of who we are, we then get to express who we are. If you never know who you are, you have no idea of what you're capable of. You have no idea of what buttons to push to make you who, fully express yourself. So again, health and disease are all about expression.
Mm-hmm.
We start off with helping people understand how to do things that they're already doing with more awareness. So, for example, we breathe about 20 to 23,000 breaths every day. Most people breathe completely unconsciously. However, if they were to breathe with awareness, now there's 23,000 opportunities in every day to live in alignment with the state that you want to be in. Many people, don't realize that we breathe 30 pounds of air a day. You consume more air in a day than food in a week. So, what if we changed the way you were breathing and the quality of the air you were breathing as a starting point? We also focus on circadian rhythm. We were essentially outdoor plants that got planted indoors. And now we're trying to negotiate with nature and bargain with our biology and tell the plant that, hey, I'm going to put you in this dark closet. I'm going to remove all the invisible spectrums of light, and you've got to fully express yourself.
Mm.
But I'm going to give you really good soil. I'm going to give you really clean, mineralized water with humic and fulvic acid in it. And I want you to grow. And I want you to grow to your fullest potential. It's biologically impossible for that plant to fully express itself
Mhm.
because it's not getting what it needs. Sunlight and circadian rhythm are essential to gene expression. They're essential to hormonal expression. They're essential to our sleep and wake cycle. They're essential to our immune function because darkness and light helps us produce serotonin and melatonin, which are mood and immunomodulators. So, we focus on circadian rhythm for that very reason. And we educate and teach people about how devoid their light is of the nutrients that it would normally provide to their nervous system and the coding and information that it would provide. See, light isn't just giving us the ability to see, it's software for our nervous system. We teach people, how to eat, but also when to eat, not just what to eat. Most people I found, and some people listening to this might be guilty of this, don't even chew their food. So
Mhm.
getting people to understand the importance of simply chewing your food, mixing your food with saliva, increasing the surface area, activating internal reflexes that increase stomach acid production and motility in the bowel, like all these things are dependent on whether we chew our food or not. So you're already chewing your food. What if you chewed it with more intention? And what we find is that now people don't need to take enzymes, they don't need to take hydrochloric acid, they don't need to they don't have bloating or constipation or issues like that anymore because they're actually activating their own internal mechanisms. So when we work on digestion, it's not just about, changing your diet, it's about changing how you eat and when you eat and the state in which you eat in. Because as you both probably know, and people listening might know, most people eat under stress and they squeeze in their meal
Mm.
and eat it unconsciously. And so, a big concept that we discuss is something called autonomic pairing. Is your nervous system in the state that supports the activity that you are trying to engage with right now? So, if you're eating in a fight or flight state, and what you really want to be in is in a rest and digest state, where blood is going to the core, it's going to the gut. You're increasing the production of the enzymes. But if you're eating in fight or flight, then the exact opposite is happening. So I expect people to have these issues and challenges if their nervous system is in the wrong state. It's kind of like imagine trying to rest while you're in fight or flight, right? It's biologically impossible, right? If your cortisol and adrenaline are through the roof and you're in fight or flight, in a survival state, your body's not activating mechanisms of sleep and recovery and repair. It's activating fight
Mhm.
or flight behavior and fight or flight physiology. So, getting the nervous system in the state that matches the activity. See, it's okay to be in fight or flight. When I'm doing sprints at the gym, I want to be in fight or flight, but I also want to know how to recover from that fight or flight. And so pairing the nervous system is very crucial to the process as well. Another big part of what we do is having short feedback loops. Short feedback loops, as I mentioned earlier, allow us to coach our clients with more effectiveness and efficiency. And it allows them to understand the nuances of the lifestyle changes that they make. Maybe they have a late night, maybe they have a late meal, maybe they drink a little alcohol, maybe they don't, maybe they do a fasting protocol. How do these behaviors affect their physiology? We have the ability to access that now. We also like to focus on what diet for people, what long-term diet people should follow. So we have therapeutic diets that we take our clients through, which include intermittent fasting and blood sugar stabilization and elimination of common inflammatory agents. But we also create a long-term dietary solution based on their genetics. Some people they're not adapted for a ketogenic diet. Some people are better adapted for a paleo diet, or what we're finding is most people are best adapted for a Mediterranean paleo type diet. But it's nuanced. And, about 80% of what I tell one client, there's going to be overlap between what I tell the next client. These are called pleomorphic or panaceas, rather, right? I can tell one person the same thing and it's going to benefit everyone. And then there's nuances. So we help kind of uncover what those nuances are so that, people can be differentiated and they can understand what works for them versus what doesn't work for them. And what we see through that process is a development of a set of skills that will last you a lifetime, anchored to your own genomics, which means that this information is never going to change. Just like, the heater button in your car is never going to change locations. So you reliably can press it and it's going to do its thing. And with short feedback loops, you get to quickly see what takes you off track and what brings you back on track. And then we coach people through that process. So we essentially teach people how to live. We teach them how to fully express what their genomics and their beautiful body has to offer them. And what they get to witness is just this beautiful unfolding and expression of health that they never knew was possible, right? We're not trying to get people back to their baseline, because most people's baseline sucks because they've never learned how to live. They don't know how to press the buttons that are readily available to them. There's probably buttons in your guys' cars that you've never pressed because you might not know what they do, or there's probably functions and features on your phone that you don't even know exist because nobody's taught you how to use them. So think about our bodies, right? They're very similar. There's buttons and nuances and ways to activate aspects of our body that nobody's ever taught us, and they're available to us whether we know about these things or not. The cool thing is once we know that they're available to us, we can tap into them, and for the most part, they're all free, which is so beautiful. And some people might be listening to this and thinking, well, being healthy is hard and being healthy is expensive. Well, let me point out the chipmunk that's probably running around in everyone's backyard, or the animal that's living in the wild. They don't have chipmunk hospitals. They don't have chipmunk doctors. They don't have chipmunk ambulances, right? And somehow they manage. Somehow they live to their normal life expectancy without illness and without disease, and have a short period of infirmary before they pass away. It's because they're living in alignment and in congruence with their biology. So the more incongruent we are, the more difficulty or resistance somebody has to living in congruence. That's just their own limitation. Your body has unlimited healing potential. In fact, if you've been listening to this entire conversation, billions of cells have died and replaced themselves. But giving you new cells doesn't necessarily improve your health if you're sending them the same message. Just like if I give you a brand new car, that doesn't make you a better driver. It just means you have a new car to bang and ding up and get into an accident with. Not teaching you how to drive, that's the problem. And so if we have new cells turning over every single day, if our gut replaces itself every 1 to 3 days, why do we still have gut issues? It's because we're sending the body the same information, and it's simply expressing that information back to us through our genomic expression.
Absolutely. And James, I know you have something that you'd like to share too and talk about. But Sachin, you're inspiring me with a message that it seems to be like a recurrent theme in almost all of our shows, which is, wouldn't it be cool if we taught this to kids? Wouldn't it be cool if we could intervene, as early as possible? I do want to say, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. So no matter what age you are, this can be your epiphany moment, like right now. When can I change? Right now. When can I make these improvements? When can I be intentional? When can I develop these habits that are creating and preventing and not just reacting to my expression? It can happen right now, and it just keeps recreating itself in this moment. And I love the beauty of that, but I love the idea of how soon can we impart this, eat real food, learn about financial independence, and learn about how to take care of yourself like the chipmunks outside in the backyard. How soon can we impart that wisdom and that sovereignty, to our to the next generations and the next generations. Because as we started with the show, I mean, those things will be relevant. Were relevant 1,000 years ago, and they'll be relevant 1,000 years from now. And I love that. Thank you, by the way. The other thing I just wanted to mention is, and James and I go back and forth on this. Me, the pro wearables. I love my Aura Ring. James does not like wearables, for all the reasons that people don't like all this tech and stuff around them. But I love the feedback that I get, the data that I get from like my Aura Ring, and I started leaning into these pillars that we're chatting about really aggressively. I have been for a while, but really aggressively since last year. Um, Back to back, I lost my father, who was 90, to sudden cardiac arrest. And he was one of those people that actually died. Like he flatlined and they brought him back. I don't know how they brought him back, but he got transferred to the hospital. He never made it out of the hospital. And he was, like I said, he was 90 and didn't take care of himself. And I don't want to say, it was expected, but it was sort of expected. We'd been expecting it for a while. But then a few months later, my older brother, Mark, was watching television with his wife and stood up to walk into the kitchen to grab something, and he died. Like he just died. Sudden cardiac arrest, number two. And it really, of course, hit me really hard. That was very unexpected. And my brother and I had grown really quite close over the last years of his life, and we were always pretty close. But really, talking to each other almost every day, and it was a big loss, in my life. But it hit me in a way of, and I think this is what we're talking about, and I share this with my own clients, that you can either be an example or a warning. And I want to be an example of how to live as long and as happy as I can, free from disease and infirmity, living a life of happiness and intention and above the line, in alignment. I really want to do that. And at that point, nonetheless, back to the Aura Ring, I leaned into all the things that you would think I would be leaning into. I was already doing it, but I really leaned into it. And since then, I started tracking they have the cardiac health, how healthy is your heart? And it started at negative 4.5 years, which is good. My heart was younger than my chronological age of my body, but today it's 11 years younger. So over the course of, I suppose, a little over a year now, I don't know if that adds years onto my life. I would like to think that it does, but my heart's even younger than it was when I started a year ago with the Jason Bradley project, which is, I think, pretty cool. I like that data. And my number one thing to improve upon, and I'm going to bring it right back to breath work for you, is my HRV. So despite my, and I have some other devices that I use to monitor things, but nonetheless, despite that awesome news, my HRV is not where I want it to be. My heart rate variability, it's just not. I know that you post your Aura stuff sometimes too, and I see your social posts on that once in a while, and I'm like, damn it, Sachin, your HRV is just too good. Why can't I have an HRV like that? And I think it's because I am living like, and this isn't psychoanalyze me time, but I think we all carry patterns from our childhood, and I have a lot of ingrained patterns that keep me in a fight or flight mode, that keep me hyper aware, hyper vigilant all of the time, just from stuff that happened to me. And I've gotten so much better, and I've let so much go, and it's still a process, and I'm learning me like you're learning you. But one thing I know I need to do more of, even though I do it, but I need to do more, is breath work. I know that when I'm doing intentional breath work and I'm incorporating it into my rhythm, my circadian rhythm, my morning routine, my evening routine, when I'm taking intentional breaks during the day to, even if it's for a minute or 5 minutes, to center and ground and breathe and just, take myself away from the rat race that, I don't want to say we all find ourselves in, but that I find myself in once in a while. I know my HRV goes up dramatically. When I don't do that, it doesn't go up. It comes down, and like, it's not where I want it to be. So I want to turn back over to you, Sachin, because breath work is so important. And I think when a lot of people hear, breath work, I think, and I think that you've said it, that it's the most powerful health technology that you've never heard of. You know, I mean, it's something that we can all do. It doesn't cost anything but to remember to do it and the time to do it. And yet it's one of these things that, again, it's simple, it's even easy, but for some reason we don't do it. Um, what would you recommend for folks that are a little like, I don't know, I don't think that breathing can really shape my health, or create health, or I don't want to say treat disease, but they're not in that paradigm. What would you say to them to help convince them, like, hey, try it, just try doing it and see how you feel? That's what I would say. Maybe you have more than that. But then second of all, after you talk about that, I'd love to have you talk about what's a really simple, I know there's not a panacea for everybody, there's a crossover, but what's a really simple, basic, fundamental, easy to implement breath work technique that you'd say, hey, try this out. Try it every day for X number of days and in this way, and see how you feel in a week or two or three.
Loaded question.
A lot, right? I know.
So here's what I'll say. Try not breathing. Now tell me how long that works for.
I love you for saying that. That's great.
So that in and of itself should tell you how important something is. You can go weeks without eating. You can go days without drinking any water. You can go a couple days without sleeping, but you can't go more than about 4 or 5 minutes without breathing. In fact, your mitochondria die after 5 seconds of not getting oxygen. So that in and of itself should tell you how important it is. Now, if we could do that with intent, right? So if anyone's into tuning cars, like one of the easiest modifications to your car to increase horsepower is to increase the air intake ability. So you just put a cold air intake on your engine and you're going to get more horsepower out of it immediately. Now, we were designed to breathe through our nose. However, 50% of the population breathes through their mouth. The mouth is, from a bacterial standpoint, one of the dirtiest parts of our body. What most people don't realize, and I didn't realize this at the time, so nobody explained the importance of breathing to me. They told me how breathing can be beneficial, but they didn't connect all the dots. So maybe in about 4 or 5 minutes, I can help people connect the dots and as to how it relates to breathing. Your breath is the steering wheel to your nervous system. It's a reliable, predictable way to change your physiology, your physicality, your biochemistry, and it's one of the only modalities that, when done correctly, or even incorrectly, but just not as effectively, influences our lymphatic system, influences our circulatory system, influences our emotions. 70% of detox actually takes place through the lungs, so it influences our detoxification pathways. It also influences our myofascial system. The myofascial system is a really interesting. If anyone hasn't watched Strolling Under the Skin, you can find it on YouTube. It's about a 20-minute video, and it shows you your myofascial system in situ. Your myofascial system is a hydrostatic system of force distribution and an emotional distribution system, or what we might call a hard drive for your emotions. It connects the cell nucleus of every cell in your body simultaneously to one another. So your body is in constant communication through this myofascial system. And the master pump of that system is the diaphragm, which is your main respiratory muscle. So as the diaphragm moves up and down those 23,000 times a day, it's assisting the heart in pumping blood. The biggest lymph nodes are underneath our diaphragm, so it's pumping the lymphatic system. It's acting as a piston to pump the lymph out of our trunk organs. It's also providing oxygenation of our cells. When we breathe correctly, which is through our nose, we're pressurizing the air, we're moisture regulating the air, we're temperature regulating the air, and we're spiralizing the air and purifying it before it goes into our lungs. So our immune system actually starts in our nose. So think about the contrast between breathing through your mouth versus breathing through your nose. Your lung and your sinuses have a microbiome. And so the nose is designed to perfect the air and sterilize the air before it comes in. When we breathe correctly, we also increase nitric oxide production. We preserve oral health. The number one cause of cavities is actually mouth breathing. When we breathe correctly, we increase nitric oxide. Nitric oxide improves circulation, especially to the brain and other peripheral tissues like our sex organs, our fingertips, our toes. And we also we dilate blood vessels, so it naturally lowers our blood pressure. What nitric oxide also does is it kills viruses and bacteria and pathogens on contact. So as we breathe through our nose, it slows the air coming in. It cleanses and sterilizes mechanically and biologically cleanses the air before it goes into our lungs, acting as an immune defense. So there's so many things that can change just based on the way we breathe. When we breathe correctly, it completely changes the quality of our lives. And I don't say that lightly because I've gone down every rabbit hole that you can imagine when it comes to breath. In fact, the way we breathe changes the shape of our face. So my son, this is what really got me into this. My son was a habitual mouth breather. And we
Mm.
thought it was cute. We take pictures of him when he was like drooling all over his pillow as a child until we got the bill. Right? Everything's fun and games until you get the bill. And so we got the bill for his cavities, we got the bill for his underdeveloped upper palate. And we realized, I'm of the belief that God doesn't make any junk. So why does he have a small upper palate? That became my mission to answer that question. And what I realized is that it's because his tongue wasn't in the right position.
Mm.
When our tongue sits in the roof of our mouth, it acts as a spacer, creating a nice, open, wide, hard palate. The hard palate is the floor of our sinuses. And so he would complain about difficulty breathing and things like that. And I didn't think anything of it. But then when we got the receipts and we got the bill, then I realized, okay, something's not quite right here. So we went to 4 different dentists and they said, oh, Mr. Patel, we're going to have to pull his teeth because his jaw's overcrowded. And I said, no, we're going to widen his palate. And that's what we did. So we had him start mouth taping. We put a palatal expander in, and now all of his teeth came in. He's got a nice, beautiful smile. But more importantly, he's got nice open airways and sinuses so that he can filter that 30 pounds of air that he's breathing every day, enhances immune function, enhances cardiac function, and so on and so forth. And one other thing to realize that ties back to things like cancer and heart disease that we talked about, and this is an undeniable truth, is that the quality of our oral health, which is really the mouth, is where the digestive system begins, right? So they say all disease starts in the gut. Well, your gut starts in your mouth. And so we swallow about 1 liter of bacteria every day.
Wow.
The surface area of your gum pockets is about the size of your palm. And so many people have an open wound in their mouth because of the way they breathe. When we breathe through our mouth, we dry out our saliva, we change the oral microbiome, we create an inflammatory cascade, which causes periodontitis and inflammation in our gums, which later leads to things like heart disease. About 80% of arterial plaques have oral bacteria in them because it's an open wound in that system. So changing the way we breathe will also change our cardiac output and cardiac markers and reduce these infections and inflammatory constituents from getting into the brain and getting into the circulatory system.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm just amazed with so much of this. And it's, again, it's just one of those things. Maybe we could add that to the list of, or add it like as a subcategory in how to be healthy, that we should be taught when we're young, is how to breathe. I have a not so cute story. I will edit this to be PG-13, but I was a mouth breather for a very long time, and it's because I grew up in a 1876 beautiful home. I mean, like architecture, they don't make it like that anymore. Very federal style house. It's the Wells Stubbs house. It has a Wikipedia page on it. So historical home, but it was full of dust and mold. I mean, let's just be clear. I mean, it was around for a very long time, and I had such an overactive immune system, and so I had a lot of mucus, and I was stuffed up all the time, and I was a mouth breather as a kid, and I never thought a thing about it until I was maybe in 3rd grade. And I was waiting at the school for the bell to ring to go inside early one morning. And Scott Holmes, God bless him, a 5th grader, came up and he said, "Hey, Bradley, what are you doing? Sucking a fill in the blank?" And I didn't know what the fill in the blank was like at the time, because I was in 3rd grade, but I just knew it wasn't like, I wasn't doing that. And I knew that it was I didn't want to be part of whatever that was. And from that time forward in my life, that, again, adverse childhood experiences, right? I literally went out of my way to like close my mouth and learn to breathe through my nose. And while it was a traumatic experience and everybody laughed, and I mean, I was made fun of for that for a very long time because it was in front of a lot of people.
Hmm.
And Scott was a very popular kid and older than me. And anyway, I actually credit him for helping me learn to breathe through my nose, which probably led to a lot of health benefits, long term. So really, I did get taught that as a kid. But my parents didn't take cute pictures and all that. I just got bullied into being a nose breather. But thank you, Scott Holmes, if you ever watch the show. I appreciate your bullying.
You know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, because it's what's important is, of course, breathing through the nose. But one thing that gets overlooked is the position of the tongue.
Mhm.
So the tongue should lay in the roof of the mouth. And what happens is when the tongue is in the roof of the mouth, it acts as a spacer. When the tongue's in the bottom of the mouth, because you can be breathing with your mouth closed, but still have your tongue in the bottom of your mouth.
Mm.
So the tongue acts as a spacer to widen the upper palate to create a wider floor for the sinus cavity. And so the tongue is a very interesting muscle. It's pound for pound the strongest muscle in our body. Helps us taste, helps us talk, helps us clean our teeth, helps us move food around and chew our food properly. What it also does, and this is interesting, because it helps us taste. When we mouth breathe, we actually require more sugar in order for us to taste sweetness. So sometimes people's sweet tooth could actually be a result of dysfunctional breathing because we dry out the tongue.
Mm.
Taste buds don't taste as sensitively as they used to.
Mm.
And then the tongue is interesting because I used to teach head and neck anatomy, but if you go back to a Netter atlas, you'll find this. Some of the muscles in the tongue attach to a muscle called the bone called the hyoid in the neck. And the hyoid attaches to the shoulder, so it attaches to the omohyoid. So it's not uncommon for people to overlook this, but the tongue is actually a postural muscle. When the tongue
Mm.
is placed in the roof of the mouth, uh, the tip of the tongue should be in the position of where we would place the tongue to make the sound na, like the letter N. So imagine saying na. That's where the tip of the tongue should be, just behind the front two teeth. It closes an energy circuit, a mudra point. This is why children suck their thumb to pacify themselves and
Mm.
soothe themselves. This is where the mother's nipple would hit when they're latching on. This is where their pacifier would hit. And so it actually soothes our nervous system to place our tongue in that position, and it holds the front of our head up. So what happens when our tongue is in that position, it relaxes the cervical extensor muscles. I have a great video of my wife, or not a video, but an image. And I know James, Jason, you would both appreciate this. She had a military neck. And so we discovered that she had a tongue tie, which is the little, frenulum on the bottom of our tongue. Her tongue couldn't sit in the roof of her mouth. And so the tongue tie procedure was just a little laser procedure.
Mhm.
It takes about 30 seconds, just a couple of days to heal. The tongue is the fastest tissue in your body to heal as well. So if anyone has ever had it, I've never had a tongue ring, but I know if you take your tongue ring out, even just for an hour, like that hole seals up pretty quickly. So it's the fastest tissue in your body to heal. So it's a fast recovery. It's a painless procedure. And then you do a series of myofunctional exercises to, kind of teach the tongue its new positioning in the mouth, and it's, teaching its new skills. But she went from a military neck to a complete restored cervical curvature just from that procedure. And we have the x-rays to demonstrate that. She was also able to, because the myofascial system connects all tissues together, immediately after having her tongue tie released, all the fascia in her body relaxed. The tension in her neck disappeared. She was able to reach down and touch her toes without resistance. And all of her, tissues were able to relax for once. So when the tongue is tied in the roof of the mouth, or at the bottom of the tongue, rather, all of our fascia becomes tight. And so it's like imagine like a string connected all the way to the tip of our toes. We release that, and our whole body can relax and our whole nervous system can relax. So just something I wanted to make sure people understand. It's not just about breathing through your nose. It's also about correctly placing your tongue in the right position to maximize the benefits.
I appreciate that. And I'm just going to say that we're getting down to the, 5-minute warning for all of us. So and there's still so much I want to unpack with you. Also, Sachin, I now have this image of you with a tongue ring, even though you said I don't have a tongue ring. I just have this image in my head, and I appreciate that for sure. I would, and if I heard you correctly, I mean, the idea is even if we are doing these things, quote, incorrectly, if maybe our tongue's not in the perfect space, although I think that's great that we should have it in that in position, a hard palate right behind the front two teeth, breathing through our nose and all of those things. It sounds like even if we're just breathing, and especially through our nose and tongue, gosh, I'm going to go OCD here and keep repeating myself. Um, it's going to benefit you no matter what. I mean, it's going to, benefit, and then couple that with intention, couple that with timing and rhythm. I want to hand it over to James. I know he has some, last questions and, for you and whatnot, but I would love to just, if people are going to practice a breathing technique, is there a time of day that's best? Is it like how would you recommend? Like I said, I do morning when I'm doing it, morning, evening, and then throughout the day. But is there a best practice with timing with that rhythm?
Yeah, it's a great question, and here's what I'll say. So, breathing is something that we do whether we like it or not, or hopefully we like it, right? It's something that's passive. So people ask me like, what's your breath work practice? And I think that might be kind of what you're asking. So my breath work practice is to bring awareness to my breath as many times as I possibly can throughout the day. My goal is to pair my breath with the task at hand. So just like we talked about autonomic pairing, we can call this breath pairing. Laughing is breath work, crying is breath work, huffing and puffing at the gym is breath work, breathing slow and steady, like using something called a coherence breath, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. That's breath work. Mouth taping is breath work, right? Screaming and yelling, right? To release trapped energy, that's breath work. So there's a lot of ways that you can express energy through your breath. Even talking, right, is breath work. You can't talk without breathing. So find what you need in that moment, right? I think the thing that the breath gives us is an opportunity to be present in the moment. And so BJ Fogg teaches a concept called tiny habits. And I'll just, anchor this with tiny habits. So tiny habits is a formula for behavior change. And if you're a clinician listening to this will benefit you. We always wonder, like, how do we get behavior change to occur? And it's with three things. First is motivation, right? So you have to be motivated to be healthy or to breathe better to change that pattern, right? The next thing is ability. Do you have the ability to put your tongue at the roof of the mouth? Do you have the ability to tape your mouth at night? Do you have the ability to slow down your breath? We all have the ability. So are you motivated? Do you have the ability? And the third thing, which is the thing that's often missing, is a prompt. A prompt reminds us to do the thing that we need to do. So for me, what I tell my clients is think of something that you think about all the time. So Jason, I'll put you on the spot. James, I'll ask you too. What's the thing you think about the most each day?
Sex. I had to answer it that way, but no, I mean, boy, I don't know. Now I've thrown myself off. I think honestly, what I think about is
Yourself.
work. I think about work all
yourself
the time.
most.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think about work all the time.
So yeah, let's say work. Maybe for some people it's email. For some people it could be like their phone. So you just anchor your breath to that and you check in, right? So I don't have to introduce breath as a concept to you to remember to breathe all the time. I just have to anchor it to something that you already do, and that will prompt you to ask yourself, okay, I'm on a call with James and Jason right now. When they're talking, how am I breathing? Right? I'm at the gym right now. How am I breathing, right? Is my breathing supporting what I'm doing, right? If I'm running sprints, I'm going to be breathing in and out through my mouth because I want my lungs and my diaphragm going crazy to help pump my heart and get that blood to my arms and legs so I can run faster. But when I'm not running and I'm trying to recover, I'm going to slow down my breath and I'm going to breathe in through my mouth. Breathe in through my nose and perhaps out through my mouth. And then once I'm able to do that, then I'm going to go back to breathing in and out through my nose to practice my recovery. So how we breathe is really dependent. And I have a guide that can help people with this. It's called Breathe Like This, Not That. And it teaches you circumstantial breathing because then you can be in a breathwork practice all day. I'm in a breathwork practice all day. When I'm sleeping at night, I tape my mouth, right? That's easy peasy breathwork insurance. It ensures I'm going to be breathing through my mouth all night. When I'm not talking, I'm breathing through my nose, right? When I am talking, I'm being conscious of taking a breath in and out. For example, when I'm exercising, I breathe a different way. When I'm trying to fall asleep, I breathe a different way. So there's a breath, just like there's an app for everything, there's a breath for everything. If I want to center my nervous system, I can use alternate nostril breathing. If I want to fall asleep better at night, I can shift into a 4-7-8 breath, which is a 4-second inhale, 7-second hold, 8-second exhale. Now I'm shifting into a more parasympathetic state. If I want to be balanced and present and increase oxygenation to my brain, and if I want to get my heart and brain in coherence, I can practice coherence breathing, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. If I want to shift into a parasympathetic state, I can practice box breathing. The way we box breathe and the count that we use for box breathing is based on our CO2 tolerance test. A CO2 tolerance test is really simple. All you do is take a few cleansing breaths, take a deep breath in, and exhale with a continuous stream of air through your nose, timing how long it takes until you can't do that anymore. The goal is to get above 60 seconds. And and then that helps you determine if you should be a 4-second box breather, an 8-second box breather, or a 10-second box breather based on your results. And you can also check in on your breath using something called a BOLT test. A BOLT test is the most affordable, which is free, easily accessible, which means it's available to you at any given moment, and most reliable and predictable way to measure mitochondrial health. Your BOLT test tells you what your blood oxygen levels are and how well you're able to dump oxygen at the tissue level and essentially feed your mitochondria. It's in the mitochondria as the only place we use the oxygen that we breathe in. So a BOLT test is a great way for people to check in as well. So there's literally thousands of different ways that we can breathe based on what our goal and our objective is, but it really starts with that behavior model. Behavior change equals motivation, ability, and prompt.
I love that. I'm gonna tiny habit that with my every time I think about work, I'm gonna recenter on my breathing. It's gonna be a life changer. I appreciate that. Hey, I just want to say thank you again for coming on the show today. And I learned so much. My notes are so long. I will say that as the Breathe Like This, Not Like That guide will be a link to that will be on the getbetterfasterpodcast.com. We'll have all this on the show notes there. We'll have all the links to Sachin's work that he does and the guides and resources and all of that. And if our listeners like to connect more, we'll make sure those links are there as well. James, I want to pass it over to you. I know you probably have closing questions, closing remarks, but Sachin, thank you so much. I really appreciate this time today.
It's my honor. Thank you.
Modify your environment, modify your life, modify your breath, modify your life. There's a breath for everything. It's epigenetics. The issues are in the tissues. When we clear up the tissues, we clear up the issues. And just like a long time ago, Sachin, if people know what we know, they do what we do. And I think it just goes to the power of this show is it doesn't matter who's on the microphone. There's always something of value. And that's what God has blessed us with is the most brilliant minds in the world that are willing to meet with us and give us their time and their talent. And I just want to thank you for giving your time and talent to us today. And I think there's a lot of things to discuss, and we went down some really great topic channels. We would definitely love to have you on for number 2. So let's just chalk that one up. But the conversation, Sachin's been absolutely transformational, not just for us, but as Dr. Jason's saying, like, hey, I just got tons of notes over here. It's clear that there's information that we share here that you're not going to get anywhere else. And that's why we birthed Get Better Faster, because we're collecting geniuses and we're putting people together that are eventually going to unify and meet each other when we have a Get Better Faster event. And hopefully you can teach everybody at that event some of your techniques. I'm just foreshadowing what the future looks like for us as a team.
It'll be an honor.
Yeah. And for our listeners, what you've heard today is more than just information. Obviously, it's practical. It's a blueprint for taking back control of your own health and using something that you do. How many times a day do you breathe? 20,000 times?
23,000. Depends.
Wow.
If you're More if you're dysfunctional breathing. Most people overbreathe.
So 23,000 times a day without even thinking about it. And that's your breath. Your breath is life. Like you said, if you remove breath from your life, how long is it before you die?
About 5 minutes. Yeah, not long.
5 minutes. So keep your breath at the forefront. And I know there's a breath for everything that you're doing. And head on over to getbetterfasterpodcast.com and grab Sachin's free resources, including what we just discussed, Breathe Like This, Not That. And the link 30 and 30 for 30 days, a free health transformation tip guide. And remember, everybody, including Sachin and Dr. Jason, nobody's coming to save you, but solutions like this can help you save yourself. Sachin, thank you again for being here. And all of you, our Get Better Faster Nation, thank you for listening and your continued support. You know, the best way to show your support is share this episode with somebody who needs to hear this message. If they're not breathing right, let us help them out. And if they need help with precision wellness, let us help them out. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode of the Get Better Faster podcast and see all the episodes with our behind the scenes hijinks that we've got coming your way. We've got more incredible guests lined up who are going to blow your mind with real solutions. Oh, I should have breathed. I should have had my breath ready for that one. I'll take two on that. We've got more incredible guests lined up who are going to blow your mind with real health solutions for reclaiming your own health, your happiness, and your life. Until next time, keep questioning everything, keep breathing, and keep getting better faster. Thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Dr. Jason. And that's a wrap for today. And just really appreciate both of you guys for sharing and getting us, everybody in the Get Better Faster Nation world, more information and more knowledge so they can save themselves with their own breath.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Sachin. And thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Love to all.
Bye for now.